thanks for joining in. And we're going to get right into it here. We got an hour to kind of talk about AI. And at the end, we're going to open it up to some, quite questions and answers as well. A little bit of an introduction about myself. My name is Saul. I'm a founder and AI architect of a startup that we started here in Oakville, Custom GPT Solutions. And what we do is basically help business growth with AI assistance. And what we try to do is save company time within their workflows. I got involved in AI more from an interest point of view in the beginning, and I start to see the real value of it, as I got more in depth into it. So I'm running these seminars to kind of try to project that towards other people as well, so they can kind of see the benefits of of how you can use that, because that's a lot of times people not sure how to use it as well. So that's what this talk is going to be about, and hopefully you can get a lot out of it. I will say, feel free to take snapshots and jot down notes and stuff. We're not going to be doing any demos. We won't have time for it, but you'll definitely see a lot of examples as well as we move on. So we're going to start really like from the beginning, and assuming like very little about the subject, just so you can get the basics out of the way. And this is what today's agenda is going to be. Is we want to talk about what LLMs are. And then we're going to get into just the basics of prompting, what that means, and then some practical applications. And we're going to talk about some advanced stuff as well in prompting. And then we're going to talk about some of the products that we do, and then some ethical considerations, and then, obviously question and answers, anything you might have. So, okay. So,
That's fun.
perfect. All right. So let me know. So, okay. So here we go. Let's start with LLMs here for now. So LLM stands for large language models, and I've color coded it here so you can kind of see what this actually means when people say it. So you can think of it as like an artificial intelligence model. And what a model is basically a neural network. As you see in the middle, we have this is what a neural network looks like. It's a lot of mathematical calculations that determines the output from a certain type of input that goes in. In this case, because we're working with language, human language, that's why it's called a language model. There are other types of models out there. So some of them are for image, some of them are for video. So in this particular situation, when we're talking about large language model, large means a lot of data that went into it, in order to fine tune it, train it, in order to be able to give a desired output. That's where the word large comes in. Language refers to the human language, and obviously the model itself is a neural network. So when when you see something like ChatGTP, that is really just a user interface of the entire process that went into creating something like this. And just for reference, there is something called a transformer type of model, and this is there's so many different versions of it, but this particular ChatGPT was trained on a kind of a breakthrough actually through Google DeepMind called the transformer model architecture actually. So it's like a framework in the way they did it. And so that's how ChatGPT was created, based on that. So that's what they mean when they mean LLM models. The next thing is let's talk about like what are the different versions, like varieties of them, right? There's so many of them. In fact, there's like almost 50 of them that are the most common ones that many like scientists and stuff and even people. But in average, for the general person, a business working with LMs, these are your typical, ones you might be dealing with. There's Gemini by Google, ChatGPT, which everyone knows, the first one that kind of came out and blew everyone out of the water. There's Anthropic, which is Claude 3, and then there is Meta, which is Llama 3. These are the latest ones that they've come out with. You're more than welcome to, these are all like, they have free versions of them. You can actually get the app on your own phone too, and you can play around with it, see what you want. I personally have found that ChatGPT seems to work for me. Gemini is pretty good as well, but it's just not as powerful because it just depends on the recipe that went into that model that I showed earlier. The way they created it is what it makes, the kind of output that it gives. So the format and the way it produces. And I found so far ChatGPT to be the best, and it really is. And there's leadership boards and stuff like that, but it's just a preference, really, about this stuff. So when we talk about large language models, we need to understand, like, so what are they kind of doing for us? So it's basically text input that then is in a form like of a prompt, and that allows you to generate things. So it's a text conversation with something. And for instance, things like answering questions to specific topics that you might have. So this, because of the amount of data that's been fed into it at the early stage when it was being developed, it has a lot of knowledge base into it about a lot of different things. So you can write essays about subjects. You can summarize things, that are more complicated. You can ask it, for instance, to summarize something in the form of like a child can understand. So you can actually break down some complex scientific like topics to make it easier to understand. If you don't have the knowledge for the language that they use in these scientific literature. So that's another thing that you can use it for. You'll notice the term multimodal being used as well. So what that means is that these models now in 2024, what they can do is they can also generate pictures and video as well. So not only can it, it's a large language model, but it's also a large, picture model or video model all built into it. So all three of them it can do. So in ChatGPT, for instance, you can actually upload a picture and ask it to extract all the, like, some of the text that's on it, and then give it back to you so that you can copy and paste it without you having to type it out. So that's the kind of cool thing you can do with it. You can ask it to, look at this image and tell you some information about it, or write an essay about it. It can do all this kind of stuff. So that's what makes it more. And you can do the similar thing with video, like transcribe a video for you. So, you feed it a, 10-minute video, and it can give you all the transcription of it as well. So these are some of the things that is really getting interesting as we go into, the evolution of this thing. So that's what an LLM is. And an important part of using these LLMs is you need to think of them as sort of like an intern that has just graduated from, college, and has a lot of knowledge, but you still need to tell it how to do certain things. It's not necessarily trained to know what's going on in your head. So in this case, like, prompting is basically a strategy for you to tell the LLM how to do the things that you want it to do. And this is where it becomes very important, is using these AIs is about the quality of the prompt, rather than just giving. And that's what a prompt is. It's basically the task, the way you formulate the task that you want it to do for you. That's called a prompt. And you heard the term sometimes, prompt engineering. They're not real engineers, just so you know. That they just, prompt engineering is basically is having the know-how and how to formulate the kind of thing that you put inside the AI in order to do it. So that's what it is, okay? And we're going to go through some examples. So here's some three important and concepts to take into consideration when you're writing a prompt. One is clarity and specificity. One is context instruction, and the other one tone. Let's kind of go through these real quick here. Clarity, very important to be very, like, tell them exactly what you want in terms of the information. Don't be vague, because if the more vague you are, the more he has to extract general knowledge. He has a very general knowledge, so it's going to look at a lot of different things within his knowledge base in order to respond to you. If you really want something specific, actually do that, just like an intern. If you want something, be very specific as to what you want from them. Context and introduction. So that's giving a bit of a background knowledge before you ask your question, can also help as well. So we'll see examples of that. Tone and style is also important too. Not necessarily you have to do it every time, but tone and style is, maybe you wanted to respond to you in a friendly manner. Maybe you're writing an email to someone and you want it to be, like, friendly, and you can give that tone to it. Maybe you want something more serious. Maybe you want something more professional. So you can actually control the way it responds it. And that's also important too, because ChatGPT does kind of talk like a robot. So if you wanted to not come across like you just created what you did give out with a it's an AI generated, you want to give it a bit of a tone so that it doesn't come across like that. It may turn someone off. So that's what the three things. So really important to take this into consideration. 4 common mistakes that to avoid in prompt is over complexity, ambiguity, insufficient detail, and mismatched expectations. So the more complicated you make the task, the less of a quality output. So best thing to do is break it down. So if you have it's something that you want to get out of the AI, why don't you break it down into a specific task and then feed those individual things into the AI, one at a time, so that it doesn't get confused. Again, we talked about being very specific in what you want, so that's kind of covered as well. Insufficient detail. If you're looking for information about a topic to be, and you want some detailed answers, you want to give that context and be as detailed as you can with it. It does definitely give you a much better answer if you do that. And then, finally, expectations. Be very clear as to what the final output should be. You can actually put in there, say, my expectation is blah blah blah, that you provide this in this format. So for instance, sometimes what I do is I want the response from the AI to be in a bullet point format with certain headings, and I'll not really specify that, because if you leave it up to the AI, it's going to do things the way it's been programmed to do. Okay. And you'd be surprised, different AIs will respond differently. And the reason is because they've also been prompt engineered by their developer. So OpenAI, which developed ChatGPT, they've already done their own. So you'll notice a lot of times, if you don't say anything, it goes into its default prompting. And maybe you're not really interested in that kind of output. So that's why you got to do that part if you want it. Okay. So let's look at some examples. We're going to look at a good prompt and bad prompt. As you can see here, there is some detail in terms of what I want. I'll let you read it. Could you provide a detailed comparison between the French Revolution and the American Revolution? Focus on their causes, main events, and outcomes, and please include how these revolutions influenced democratic principles globally. Provide your response in a way that a 9-year-old can understand. So I'm very specific. I told it what my expectation. Versus if you just say compare the French and American Revolution, that's just not going to give you as quality of an answer as you want. Okay. Here's another example. A good prompt. Could you analyze the impact of artificial intelligence on job markets, particularly focusing on which industries are most affected? What new job roles are emerging due to AI, and how workers can adapt to these changes? You might think this is a lot, but it can understand this. It's not going to confuse it. You're really being specific on what you wanted to focus on. And then it says, please provide examples from the technology and healthcare sector. See, you're being very specific. You don't want, from the construction industry. You don't want anything like that. You're being very specific because you have a specific reason why you're doing this. So provide a response in bullet point format. I mentioned I do that quite often, with appropriate headings. So again, you'll be really trying to incorporate those 3 elements that I discussed earlier. Okay. And all right. So that's what prompting is. It takes a little bit of practice. The more you use it, you start to see the kind of answers you kind of get. And if you do stick with one AI, you start to see what it can do for you, and you start to kind of fine tune yourself in a way they do ask their questions. Okay. But we're going to get into some practical applications in business. And the first one we're going to start with is composing email, because this is a very popular one. You can actually get the AI to write a particular email for you. Here's an example. Write an email asking my valued client named John. So you're going to give it. If you don't give the name, it'll just say insert name here. If you wanted to make it so easy for you that you just copy and paste it straight into your mailbox, then you just hit send, you got to put in all these elements. So name John to reschedule a meeting that was scheduled for Friday, May 10th, offering to meet at the convenience of the following week with availabilities of Monday, Friday, Wednesday, and Friday. And so again, very specific on which days, just like an intern. If you're an assistant, think of it as assistant. You're telling it exactly what you want it to do. At the end of provide a link to my Calendly page for them to go ahead and book it. So I give it my link and then sign it at the end with my name, write this email in a very friendly tone. So see, I give that tone at the end, because what I had done is I gave it like that, and then the answer I got was really, it felt kind of robotic. But when I put in this final term, write this email in a friendly tone, you'll notice that it becomes much more human-like. It has a little bit of emotion attached to the email. So the person reading it has a better experience. So you can actually go ahead and copy that, put it in. As I said, we're not gonna. I've tested it, so it actually does give you a pretty good output. Feel free to use it. But yeah, so that's one thing. Another use case in business, generating an outline for a meeting. So let's say you're doing a meeting and you want to get a quick outline, rather than sitting there for a couple hours, formulating off the top of your head. You can use the AI to help you kind of do that. And so all this stuff is to save you time. This is really what it's about. So here's create an outline for a meeting on AI safety, introducing beginners to LLMs and how AI might impact jobs. Focus on both jobs that might be at risk and jobs that might be created. Work-life balance, productivity in the workplace. Provide your answer in bullet point format with 1 to 2 sentences of context for each bullet point. Again, specific. I tell it what I want and what to focus on. I don't want it to focus on anything else outside of this. And so this is really, again, the prompt. But then, yeah, so, generating outlines for you. Now you can think of it as like even, it could just be a sales meeting as well. It doesn't have to be a meeting just for your team. Let's say it's a sales call you're going to be going to, and you're doing a consultation, and you can actually have this help you kind of get started with that meeting, and so that you have a lot of talking points in that sales call. So it can be that. Content generation, I'm sure you've heard this tons. This is one of the biggest ones. When it comes to even images, blog posts and all this, any kind of content. But a very interesting one is even like, here's an example, like summarize this context below to write a clear, concise product return policy and outline 5 steps for customers. So you can feed it information about your product if you're running it as an e-commerce company. Give it all this information and then get some kind of a return policy based on this. So take your response and turn it into a short blog. So not only are we generating that return policy, we're going to take what it generated and then create a blog with the title "Resolve Common Issues without agent assistance," and then like have separate sections for a return policy or refund policy. So again, if somebody does search your company and let's say this blog comes up, that helps keep them on your website. Maybe it's an element of, you'll notice that people tend to return this item or has issues with it. It can help with SEO if you were to create blogs relevant to the customer's issues or problems, so they can get the answers really quickly. So again, this is a very good way of improving customer service as well. Yeah, that's basically some of the major use cases. What another web approach think about is a more advanced approach to utilizing these LLMs. And what businesses are now doing, and you see like Microsoft and Amazon as well, they have these platforms that help companies take their internal data and feed it into a kind of an infrastructure that they've set up to then create these what's called AI assistants and AI chatbots. Chatbots are more customer facing, where the customer can interact with it. It can also be sort of like a ChatGPT basically. But the difference is that it knows not only its internal data that it has when it was trained, remember those large language models, like the large information, but it also now additionally has information about your own particular knowledge base that you want to know that never been trained on. So your company information is proprietary. Maybe you're running a bakery and you have all the specific recipes that you can actually feed it that, and then it will have knowledge, and then you can create applications around it. So why do we do that? Basically is to reduce workflow time. The whole point of all this AI thing, the benefit that it brings to an organization is that if a workflow is, let's say, 20 steps, and you can bring it down to 10 steps, that has saved the company a lot of time. And that time can now be put towards different things, more profits, so you can explore, do R&D more. You can take in more projects if you're a company that takes and does like, let's say, bids, and does projects. You can have more work-life balance for your employees. They don't have to be caught up in doing office work to a late at night with just certain tasks they can automate with AI, and also do more challenges. We all want to be challenged, and we all hate doing the repetitive, let's say, data entry or all these kind of things. If we can create applications that does that for us, we can focus on more challenging stuff. So that's what the whole thing is. So it's not about getting lazy. People think, oh, the AI is going to do all the work and we're not going to. No, we're going to still have a lot of more work because we can't take on more work. And we'll just do things that we want to do, not necessary things that we don't want to do. So these are the benefits I see going into it. Now, not to say that there will be sectors that will be affected for sure, but I think the overall outcome will be far better than the loss that we'll have in the initial portion of it. Um, so that's that. Now let's look at some advanced stuff. So we took those three elements that we talked about earlier. Let's get a little bit more advanced with prompt engineering. Uh, the let's look at it from a point of view of like you're having a conversation, as I said, like an intern. You want to focus on these four elements when you want a more specific output. These are more complex. So persona, task, context, format. What do these things mean? Okay, let's look at an example. Oops. Okay, so I color coded it here so you can kind of see what it is. I'm going to read it out and you can see the color code, what that all means. Help me craft an empathetic email response. Okay, so that's our task. I am a customer service representative. And so again, this is the persona. So you just told it what it is. I need to create a response to a customer complaint. We go back to the task. There's the context. We had context in the original one too, right? So this is what it is. I think that the thing that we really added here is the format element of it. Because the persona, we had that before, the task, we had that before, the concept. So we're just adding the format here. So the customer ordered a pair of headphones, this is our context, that arrived damaged. They've already contacted us via email and provided pictures of the damage. I've offered a replacement, but they requested an expedited shipping option that isn't typically included in the order. Okay, so that's our context. Now format. Include a paragraph that acknowledges their frustration, 3 bullet points with potential resolution, right? Just think about how much time that just saves you for you to go and sit there and type this out and make sure it's not coming across, vulgar or whatever. You know what I mean? You're trying to just cool down the situation here. So here's a way to kind of get the output, and then you can then do any kind of editing you want. You may not have to do any editing. You can just change, for instance, the persona. You can make it. I'm a friendly customer service. I'm a funny customer service representative, right? You can do all that stuff with it. Okay. So, and let's talk about a little bit about what we do. So that's basically, I would say, as far as what you need to worry about in terms of, it's just practice. Anything more is just repeating the same concept. Now, there is links to and information on the web about more examples, but I would say the best way is to see the things that you tend to want to use it for and then practice with it, and eventually you start to see what works for you, and chances are you're going to get to a point where most of the things that you're doing, you just know how to talk to it. You'll have like, they're going to be covered. Chances are you adding a new type of task to how you're going to use AI is going to be right. If you're writing email, you're going to know how to work with it, right? Content, stuff like that. All right, so what we do, going back to what we talked about, AI chatbots and AI assistants, that's basically what we do. We the knowledge base to have in order to create these AI assistants is a bit of a learning curve. And many companies are just recently just catching up with just understanding how to use ChatGPT properly for one thing, but being able to then hire data scientists or AI engineers sit down and use a particular infrastructure to create these things can get quite costly. What we do is we've created in the back end pre-built AI assistants, prompted all the stuff that need to get out to get the good output. And all you do, or essentially our customers do for us, is provide us their data, and we make sure that it's very secure, and we basically set it up with the AI assistant in order to do various tasks. So an example could be like you want to get information about, you want to train one of your employees, but you know, having a dedicated team leader is, they don't have time to train everyone. So what you can do is create an application that every time one of your new employees has a question, they can just go on to that chatbot, they can access it and get answers very quickly rather than trying to wait for someone to give them the answer. Okay, this can be on the factory floor, for instance. Let's say you're on a factory and you just want the person have everyone to have access to information anytime they want. So that's one of the benefits of it. Let's say you want to create blog posts and you want the format to be a specific way, and you have various documents within your organization that you can draw from and write these blog posts that you think your users search for on Google. You can do that as well with it. Um, it can be something like a, an AI chatbot that customers go online on your website and they access it and then they book appointments right away, right off your, and then that goes right in your calendar. So you don't have to do anything. You just show up in the morning and your calendar is filled with people who basically are looking for your service and they booked an appointment online. And they got a lot of the answers they were looking for through the chatbot. you know so that's the kind of stuff that we can create. And if there's certain things that you're looking for, again, remember we come back to the workflow element. We want to reduce a workflow, we can actually create custom applications that do that. Okay. Coming to best practices and ethical consideration, this is a huge topic. I'm actually an associate in an organization called AI 2030, and they're doing a lot of research on how AI can affect the global market, just the societies there. And so researching safety of AI is an important part. So what does it mean, safety? Well, first one is privacy and data security. Companies are very worried that if they were to upload their data in some of these LLMs, that their proprietary data or even sensitive data, let's say it's a medical information, that it can get leaked or someone can hack it. And so that's a big one. So there's ways to make sure that that information is kept maybe either a local server or sometimes you think that cloud computing can be breached at some point. They're worried about that. So there's ways to, in order to, these ethical issues when it comes to data is a big one, because people's private information is then at risk. The other one is a lot of organizations are worried that people are going to lose their job, and this is an important element, is when, as an organization, when you are thinking about introducing AI within your workflows and stuff, you need buy-in not only from leadership but also from people, your employees. If you don't get the buy-in, no one's going to use it, and you won't get the achievements that you're trying to, like, you won't get the goal that you're trying to achieve here. So it needs to augment the human performance. That this has to be designed right from the get-go, is that we're trying to make their job more efficient. And as we discussed earlier, the more efficient they can be, the more important tasks they can focus on. Maybe quality assurance. Maybe we take on more customers. Maybe they can go home like don't have to worry about certain things because the AI is taking care of it. You know what I mean? Like, these are the kind of things that that can augment the human performance, and so not eliminate it. That's not what we were trying to do here. And so this is where governments are getting involved, is to try to do it in such a way where we don't have mass unemployment, which could lead there if we're not careful, as these things get smarter. But if there's regulations or the people are approaching this from an ethical point of view, we're making sure that we're protecting our society as we move forward. And then finally, maintaining human oversight. as smart as these things are, all even the basic tasks that we just discussed today, you still need human oversight. So there's right there is that people are not going to be eliminated because someone still needs to review the final answer. One of the important use cases for most of these LLMs has been in the tech industry with regards to coding, and it's made coding so much easier because you can just ask it to create for instance, like a code for a website. It can do it for you or help you with the code that you're stuck on before you have to Google search it. Now I can do that for you. But if you want to ask it to write, let's say in the case of create a website, you need to create a website for you. Well, you still need to review it. Someone knowledgeable needs to be able to review it because it makes mistakes. It does something called hallucinations, which are like it thinks it's giving the right answer, but it's really not. It's kind of lying, you want to say, in a way, but it doesn't know that it's lying. These things is that they're mathematical computations or probabilities. All the words that come out when you type in a prompt and you get a response, it's a probability thing. And sometimes you can just get that probability wrong and it'll give you an answer that's not right. So that's the important part that you consider.